What's new across federal ministries, agencies, and parastatals? Let's find out on Ministry News. The Federal Executive Council, FEC, has approved a total sum of 225.2 billion naira for projects and procurement in the Ministries of Aviation, Police Affairs, Works and Housing, and Health. The Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika, on Wednesday disclosed this while briefing State House correspondents after the FEC meeting. It disclosed further that the federal government approved a sum of 7.9 billion naira for the contracts for the establishment of the Fire Truck Maintenance and Refurbishment Center in Katsina and other strategic projects in other ministries.
The center will cater for aviation firefighting equipment, including all other firefighting equipments around the country. In fact, it's not going to be limited to only firefighting. It will be for heavy-duty vehicles that could be maintained. And the
vehicles that were about supply are to be used for tactical operations, supervision, and strategic deployment in a bid to strategize for better security networking, as well as aid strategic deployment of tactical squads to tackle insecurity across the country.
Procurement of these equipment, it is strongly believed that most patients that usually travel to Lagos and some other surrounding environment close to Ile-Ife to seek for better medical services will now be able to have the comfort and the leisure of staying back in Ile-Ife to get all the medical services they need in terms of diagnosis and treatment at the Bafemi University Teaching Hospital Ile-Ife.
The federal government has approved the reconstruction of the Enugu-Onitsha Expressway by one of the telecommunications service providers, MTN, at the cost of over 202.8 billion naira under the Road Infrastructure Tax Credit Scheme. Briefing newsmen after the FEC meeting, the Works and Housing Minister, Babatunde Fashola, explained that the road project has been executed in line with the Executive Order 7 signed by the President in January 2019. According to him, the telecom giant will complete the dualization of the 110-kilometer road Enugu-Onitsha Expressway.
The first that was approved today was the one by MTN Nigeria PLC, the telecommunication company, to take over and complete the ongoing Enugu-Onitsha Expressway. That road is 110 kilometers, which is being dualized. So you have 110 kilometers times 2. The outstanding works aggregate to about 91 point something kilometers on both sides if you accumulate it. So this policy is going to allow a steady and sustained stream of funding to completion by MTN.
The Federal Executive Council has approved the establishment of a Maintenance, Repair and Overhaul MRO Center for the aviation industry. This was disclosed by the Infrastructure Concession Regulation Commission (ICRC) in Abuja on Wednesday. The center, according to the federal government, will be first in West and Central Africa, and it will be a one-stop shop for the overhaul, routine maintenance, and service of aircrafts. The MRO Center will be done through a public-private partnership (PPP) with Messrs. AJW Consortium as the concessionaire, using the Build, Operate and Transfer (BOT) PPP model.
Is to have a huge facility where multiple aisle wide capacity aircraft such as 777, 747s, including the smaller ones of 737s and so on, can be maintained from check A all the way to final check D, A, B, C, and D. And it is extremely necessary because the facility does not exist in Nigeria. Not only in Nigeria, in the whole of West and Central Africa, there is none.
The Minister of Power, Abubakar Aliyu, has insisted that the federal government has no plan to privatize the Transmission Company of Nigeria (TCN), urging the public to dismiss statements regarding a non-existing plan to privatize the TCN. The minister explained that the TCN is a centerpiece in the federal government of Nigeria's efforts to rejuvenate the power sector. Therefore, the Ministry of Power, with other key stakeholders, to continually evaluate, assess, and upgrade the TCN to make it more efficient and transparent. The Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika, has announced the federal government's approval for the requests of the Lagos State government for the construction of the Lekki Airport in Ibeju-Lekki local government area of the state to be constructed around the Lekki Free Zone. The minister who handed over the approval documents to the Lagos State Governor, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, at the Enyibeti Economic Summit in Lagos, is expected to offer individuals and corporate organizations options from the existing facilities across the state.
We in the Civil Aviation Ministry are pleased to issue all this approval to Lagos State, and with a prayer that may it be beneficial to Lagos, to its people, its future, its fortune, to the country and to humanity. Your Excellency.
As the official pictures are being taken, please can we have also on stage the Executive Director representing the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, FAN.
The Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Alhaji Mohammed Nanono, has warned that the country's food production is in danger due to the ongoing production and financing for agricultural extension. The minister made this statement during his speech at the inauguration ceremony of the third batch of extension training in Ilorin, the capital of Kwara State. Nanono, who was represented at the event by the state coordinator of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, Dr. Aliyu Isa Kabir, described agricultural extension as a driver of all agricultural policies and research, which all efforts in the agricultural ecosystem may not realize its intended goals. The minister, however, noted that the training, which was held in all the headquarters of all the 36 states of the Federation, is one of the strategies employed by the federal government to stop the drift in the agricultural extension system, with the aim of pursuing the revitalization of the country's economy. The federal government on Wednesday commenced a process to review the Land Use Act. The Director, Lands and Housing of the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing, Godwin Itua Chimini, disclosed this at the 27th Conference of Directors of Lands in the Federal and State Ministries, titled The Land Use Act and Management Responsibilities of the Federating Units. Godwin stated that it had become necessary to commence the process due to numerous friction between state and federal governments on land administration. According to him, the friction has impeded promises made to Nigerians in terms of infrastructure and housing provision. The Minister of State for Industry, Trade and Investment, Mrs. Miriam Yalwaji Katungom, recently in Cairo, Egypt, insisted that Nigeria remained one of the most attractive investment destinations in Africa, urging investors to take advantage of the enormous economic opportunities thereof. The minister, who spoke at the maiden conference of the Nigeria-Egypt Trade Conference, an exhibition with the theme for Africa by Africa in Cairo, said Nigeria's current e-commerce spending stood at about $13 billion per annum, adding that the figure was projected to rise to about $75 billion in annual revenue by 2025. The federal government says it will take possession of the National Theatre from contractors handling its renovation and reconstruction from the 4th of November 2022. The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, made this known in Arusha, Tanzania, while interacting with newsmen on the outcome of the 65th United Nations World Tourism Organization's UNWTO and its tourism and culture counterparts that Nigeria was ready to host them in November. The Global Conference on Tourism, Culture and the Creative Industries is scheduled to hold on the 14th to the 16th of November 2022 at the National Theatre, Lagos, Nigeria. Ambassador Gabriel Taniyu Aduda has been deployed to the Ministry of Petroleum Resources as the new permanent secretary. Speaking at the welcome ceremony organized by the directors of the ministry, the PS asked them to put aside their individual differences and perspectives and work towards moving the ministry and the nation forward, as he is ready to work assiduously to ensure that the ministry succeeds in a mandate in oil and gas sector. Ambassador Aduda stated that with the Petroleum Industry Act (PIA) in place, the ministry will have to work out modalities for the reforms that will now form the ministry's new oil and gas industry policy to help the policy to position the ministry to play its role effectively. The federal government has reaffirmed its support and empowerment of women, girls, and caregivers of children with disabilities as a focal tool for alleviating poverty amongst the citizenry. The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Ajia Sadia Umar Farouk, disclosed this at the graduation closing ceremony of the Skills Acquisition Training for Women, Girls, and Caregivers with Disabilities recently at the Industrial Training Fund (ITF) in Abuja. She said empirical evidence indicated that persons with disabilities, and more importantly women and girls with disabilities, were disproportionately affected by these ugly economic and developmental indexes. And finally, on ministry news, the Minister of Youth and Sports Development, Mr. Sunday Dare, has lauded the contributions of the civil service towards nation building and national development. He gave the commendation when he joined the staff of the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development to mark the 2022 Nigerian Civil Service Week celebration in Abuja. Dare will confer the awards on 18 staff of the ministry for their outstanding performances, charged the staff of the ministry to continue to align themselves with the present administration's mandate to the head of the Civil Service of the Federation to institutionalize performance management system and ensure efficient service delivery in the conduct of government's business.